Don't forget 9 o'clock. Hey everybody, welcome to Kiki Loves Nigeria. How is everybody doing this Saturday? I hope everybody had a wonderful Saturday. Y'all let me know if you can't hear me because I have to hook up my microphone. But all this time, my phone wasn't charging, so I had to let my phone charge a little more, and then I'm going to hook up the microphone. So y'all let me know if you can't hear me, okay? So how's everybody doing this weekend, this Saturday? I am doing fine. I am doing wonderful. The weather started off really nice. It was really, really nice. It was about what, 80 something? And then all of a sudden it just started raining and now it's cold. So, welcome. Let me take this time to introduce myself. My name is Kiki, and my name is Kiki Loves Nigeria, and I am the host of your show. I'm just pulling up my notes, and I am the host of the show. And tonight, I'm going to talk about, oh, where am I from? I wrote it down so I don't forget y'all. Where am I from? I am from the great state of Ohio. And what we're going to talk about tonight, we're going to talk about something a little interesting and a little different, okay? Um, when I was researching this topic to get, information about it, what I found was it was really interesting because what they were talking about, what they were describing, okay, were actually things that I had experienced in my life. It was like these were actual things that I had been through. And and this is why these things are called systemic, because it's inside this type of racism is inside of systems, okay? And that's what we're going to talk about. And the impact, when you grow up in a system where you are discriminated against and those who look like you are discriminated against, and that's just the practice. The impact of that, the long-term impact of that, studies have shown that that does cause long-term mental illness in African Americans. And unfortunately, the study also showed that the mental illness go lots of times, many times, it will go untreated because of different reasons within our community. So it was really interesting to uh, to research this because you think in this stuff that you're going through that it's all in your head. That these things are being done to you, just to you. And there's something wrong with you. But no, this is not something that is just done to you. This is something done to the ethnic group, the African American, and it's done systemically and it's done through generations. Okay, so that's what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about first we're going to define what it is, then I'm going to show you what this systemic racism has done, and how they execute their plan. This is a plan that's been executed. Okay. So that's another thing I'm going to show you. And then I'm going to talk about how, like I was telling you, how we develop mental illness from this and how this mental illness shows up in our lives. Okay. And also, I'm going to talk about ways to combat this. Okay. Because just because you grow up with it and you're exposed to it, it doesn't mean you don't, you have to just deal with it. You have to learn to overcome it. And I'm going to talk about that tonight, how ways to overcome it. Okay. And again, these aren't just what things that I've come up with. These are research studies. These are research studies that different people have researched and produced. All right. To help us better understand this subject. So let me explain why I selected this topic. I selected this topic because when I was doing my research on colorism, it came up that racism causes a lot of mental illness in the African American community. And I was just really shocked because I was like, wow, I bet it does. And I bet that, this mental illness isn't just something that just happens to like one generation. I bet this mental illness is generational. Okay. Again, you guys, let me know if you can't hear me because I'm charging my phone, and then I'm gonna hook up my microphone in a minute. So these mental illnesses, are generational. So that's what got me onto it. That's when I started thinking, oh wow, this is really something. And then I started researching various topics, on YouTube, and also on Google, various research studies on this topic. And these studies were really interesting. What these people were finding out about us, and just how we're discriminated against in everywhere you look in the United States. The African American is discriminated against, and this is a well-known fact, and it's a documented fact. So it's it was shocking to read this stuff, even though you kind of know it, but when you see it and you see the numbers, it was sad. It was sad, and it was shocking. So that's where I got the information from. A lot of this information comes from the Pew Research Group. They do a lot of research on this topic, and the ACLU, they do a lot of research on this topic also. Um, I also talk about my personal experience with racism, segregation, and discrimination. All right. So, again, I got this information from research articles, and I also got this information from various topics and videos that I watched. But most of it came from the research articles, because the research articles really went in depth. They explained it in detail, and they gave where they got the information. I could just click on the link and see the study. I could see where they had gotten this information. Okay, so let's stop there and see if we have any questions. Okay, no questions? All right, so let's continue. Let me go back. So before we do anything, though, we got to get an understanding, okay, of racism. Because I notice a lot of people don't understand, they don't know the meaning of racism in the first place, all right? So the first thing we got to do, we got to define what racism. When we talk about racism, we want to know, what are we talking about? And we're talking about the belief that one group is superior to another group. Okay, that's how we're defining racism. When we talk about racism here, we're talking about that there's a group of people who believe that people's physical attributes, people where they come from, they believe that that makes them superior to another group. That's how we're defining racism. All right. There's two types of racism that exist. All right, we got to talk about those. The two types are interpersonal and systemic. Remember, we talked about systemic a little bit, but I'm going to now tell you what it is. Interpersonal racism, now that's the kind that we're familiar with both of them, but the interpersonal one is the one we kind of experience, like, we experience them both day to day. But the interpersonal, that's the one you get from people. Let me put it like that. The interpersonal comes from people. That's the racism that you will experience from other people. All right. And that's called prejudice behavior more than it is racism, because that's why people say that, Black people are racist. Black people are racist too, because when they hear people use hateful words against other groups, other racial groups, that's why they think, oh, they're racist. Okay. But when I define racism a little later, what has to go together, you have to, for this systemic racism to occur, you have to be the group in power, because you're the one saying, we're going to keep our group in power. And the way we're going to do this is that we're going to disenfranchise, we're going to undereducate, if educate at all. We're going to, fill the prison systems with these people. We're going to have these people living in the worst neighborhoods possible. We're not going to give them loans. We're going to do everything together to keep us on top and keep them on the bottom. All right, that's what the difference is. So, biased beliefs, bias, some people have biased beliefs, and these biased beliefs, that means that they have prejudiced behaviors. All right, that doesn't mean that they are practicing racism. Because again, to practice racism, you have to have the power to do something to that group. You have to be in charge, and you have to make sure their schools don't get funding that they get. You have that the other schools get. You have to make sure that those schools don't get the good teachers like the other schools get, the white schools get. You have to make sure of that. And you put policies into place, and you put programs into place that ensure that this happens. All right? Now, I'm going to define systemic, and then I'm going to let you ask questions if you have any questions. Now, systemic, that's the racism that infects the structures, if you will, of the United States. Okay? So if you think about the structures of our country, the United States, if you think about the education system, the banking system, if you think about the court system, if you think about the government system, all of the systems, if you look at them, you will see that they discriminate against African Americans, which means they treat that group and other minorities, because it's not just us, differently. All right, corporations, they treat that group, African Americans and other minorities, who you can look and physically see a difference in their skin color, their features, where they come from. They treat these people different. Okay, that is systemic racism. All right, now we got questions. Okay. Y'all still don't have any questions? All right, so let's just keep going. So let me know if you got any questions. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the areas where you see this racism. All right, this systemic racism. We're going to talk about in wealth. All right, I'm going to give you some facts and figures, because before you to even understand or believe that this is occurring, you gotta know. You gotta know the facts and the figures about it. All right. So now we're going to talk about wealth. All right. Wealth. Now, the white percent, right? The white people in the United States, they have 90% of the wealth in this country. Okay? We're talking about wealth, not money, but wealth. Now, wealth is money that you don't have to spend. You don't have to spend that. You just have it in the bank, and you don't have to spend it. It's been in there for generations. It's been in there for a long time, and you don't even know how much it is. You just know that it's in there. That's wealth. You don't spend that money. So people who have that type of money, okay, they are white, and they make up 90% of people who have wealth. All right. Black people are African Americans. They use those terms interchangeably. They hold 2.6. We hold 2.6% of the wealth in the United States, while Latinos hold 2.3%. All right. Now, we're going to talk about employment. I'm going to go through them, and then I'm going to stop, okay? So it's not too much. So then we're going to talk about employment. Black people they are unemployed, likely to be unemployed twice as much as white people. All right, twice as much. So remember, we're in a smaller group. We make up a smaller part of the United States population. So within that smaller part of the United States population, we are 2 times more likely to be unemployed than our white counterparts. Now just think about that. Just think about that. We're already this small section within the United States, all right? And within that small section, That group is 2 times more likely to be unemployed than their white counterparts. Wow, that stuff is alarming to me. And even though this is stuff that I, studied, that learned through the years, every time I study this, the numbers don't get smaller, y'all. The numbers get bigger. The numbers grow. Okay. Then there's always a new category. Not only do the numbers grow, but then you'll notice there's a new category. All of a sudden now there's suspensions in school and education. They're looking at suspensions. They're showing up in suspensions. They're discriminating in when they suspend the kids now. We're going to talk about that next. All right. So listen to this. Black people with college degrees, Black people like me, okay, Black people like you who have college degrees, okay, we are twice as likely to be unemployed also as our white counterparts. So you think, okay, I'm going to go to school so I won't be in this unemployment of these African Americans who are twice as likely to be unemployed. So I'm going to go to school and I'm going to get me some college degrees, and then I don't have to worry about that. But no, that's not the case. Because when you get your college degree, you're going to be twice as likely to be unemployed as your white counterpart. So you're not going to escape that, even though they tell us, when we go to school, when we stay out of trouble, we can escape all of that. We'll get good jobs, we'll move up the economic ladder. They tell us all of that. But studies are showing us otherwise. Studies are showing us differently. The studies are showing that even when we do all of that, we're still looked over twice as much as our white counterparts. That to me is alarming, but I know it's true just from my own experience. Being fitting in that category and going through the professional job market, looking for jobs, looking for positions. And they want a certain type of Black person. And that's true. They do. They don't want you if you're the type who will speak your mind. Very few companies will want you. If you're the type of person who understands who you are, if you're the type of person who gravitates towards your ethnicity and you are proud of who you are and you don't assimilate, you respect culture and you respect your culture, but you don't feel like assimilation is necessary. You feel like respect is necessary, but you don't feel like assimilation is necessary, then you are going to have a lot of problems in corporate America. Beautiful, turn the air on. You're going to have a lot of problems in corporate America. Period. And this is what it's saying. This is exactly what it's saying. All right. So listen, these same research people said, well, why is that? Because in all fairness, we don't even put on our applications what color we are. They can't even ask you what color you are. Remember? We don't put that on there, and they don't ask that. But guess what they use to determine what color you are? Studies have shown that they will use your name. And if your name, excuse me, if your name sounds Black, you're 50% more likely than your white counterpart who has the same resume. You're 50% more likely to not get that job, not even get an interview, because your name sounds Black or African American. And let me tell y'all how I know this is true. And you can even it says they had identical resumes. So the only thing that was different was one name sounded African American, the other name sounded European. The name that sounded African American, they didn't get the job. The name that sounded European, they would get, well, not even the job. They wouldn't even get the interview. So let me tell y'all about my experience with this, okay? When I worked at, I'm not going to say where, but it was an education and it was at a university. Okay. So I was on a committee. We were handing out scholarships. These were leadership scholarships for the whole university. We had this one girl, this one young lady. She was excellent. She had met all the criteria for the scholarship. She had went over and beyond what we wanted. She had good letters, good references, everything. So I voted for this young lady. I put her application out there. Now, my white counterparts, because I was only African American there, my white counterparts looked at the application and they laughed. And you know what they were laughing at? You know what they said? We can't even read this name. I don't know what this says. I don't know what this says. Passed it to the other person. I don't know what this head says. How are we going to nominate this person? How is this person going to win anything? And we can't even pronounce their name. You know what they did? They took that application and put it in the trash can. Yes, they did. They put that application in the trash can. That young lady who met all the criteria to win that award, that young lady who went above and beyond, only lost that award because of her name. Because of her name. That's how I know this is true. Because I've sat in those boardrooms. I've sat at the table when they're making these decisions. And I listen to what they say. I listen to what they say. And these are the things that they say. And these are the things that they do. They're not lying. These people who do these studies, they're not lying, y'all. This is unfortunately so very, very true. And if you're not willing to sell your soul, if you're not willing to sell out your own people, then you'll probably always be looking for a job. Because they're going to want you to do that. You're going to either play by their rules or you're not going to play at all. And their rules include undermining and taking advantage of poor people and minority people. And that includes African Americans. And I kid you not. Case in point, I worked for the city. I'm not going to tell you what city it was, not Dayton though. I worked for the city in economic development. Okay? Let me tell you what we wanted to do. We wanted to go and regentrify this neighborhood. All right? So one way you could go and get a neighborhood, people were living there, because in older neighborhoods in Ohio, okay, you could declare this neighborhood blighted. This was a term they were using. If the neighborhood was declared blighted, okay, the city could come in, give you a little money for your house, and take your house, whether you wanted to move or not. So my job at this city, believe it or not, that was my job. To go to the neighborhoods that the city wanted, pretend like I was cool with the people. Pretend like I was cool with the people. Pretend like I was there to help them, y'all. Yes. The people would see me in the neighborhood walking around because I'd have to do surveys. People would see me. People come up to me, start talking to me. And, they would say, well, the city tried to take our house one time. And I was like, what? The city didn't tell me this, though. They were like, yeah, yes, ma'am. Because it was in southern Ohio. So people down there were really kind of country. And they were like, yes, ma'am. And I was like, really? And they said, yes. And I said, well, what were they doing? They said they came, they sent somebody out here. Listen, y'all. They sent somebody out here. And the person came out here and was spying on us under surveillance. That's one of the other things that people, how they systemically discriminate against you. So they had this person would come out there pretending like they were out there to help them, and they were really writing these people up. Because the one way you get people out of their neighborhood, their house, is you can do zoning enforcement. And with a city that I worked for, you could write tickets every day. Okay, if you had a couch, I would go through well, let me back up. Okay, so this was all new to me, because guess what? Guess whose job that was? That was my job. That was now my job. I had no idea the city had got into a fight with this neighborhood and these people in this neighborhood, and the city had to back down. So the city thought it was cool. They had backed down long enough. So they said, let's send a little black girl in there. They're not going to suspect her. And they didn't. They didn't. They did not suspect that I was there to do the same job that white man had been there to do. And that was to take their neighborhood. This is what I was supposed to do every day, y'all. Every day. I was supposed to go to this neighborhood with my little clipboard and my pencil, my camera, and take pictures of zoning violations. You got a couch on your plate. I had to study the violations because we was looking for petty violations, okay? Petty violations. Things you wouldn't even normally think of. Like, you know how some people, they like to put furniture on their porch. And I'm not talking about furniture, like outdoor furniture. I'm talking about furniture. All right. This place where I lived, this place where I didn't live there, I'm sorry. This place where I worked, the city, you could not put furniture. You could have furniture on your porch. Okay. Most of the residents in that city had no clue that was in the master plan, and you could not have furniture on your porch. So guess what I would do every day? I would go and see who had furniture on their porch. Write them a ticket. Here's your ticket. You don't take that couch off your porch. You don't take that chair off your porch. You don't take that table off your porch by tomorrow. Guess what? I'm going to give you another ticket. Yeah. And guess what? It was piling up, piling up, piling up. And then I realized what I was doing. I realized these people are using me. They're sending me in to pretend like I'm cool with these people, because these people talk to me every day. You see, I told these people about programs. I told these people about services that they, when they had issues. I was there. I was the city person you saw in the neighborhood every day. And you don't normally see the city people there every day unless there's a problem. But they looked at me and they thought, oh, she's not here. She surely isn't the problem. She doesn't look like the problem. But I was the problem because I was working for the problem. And either I did what the problem told me to do, or there was going to be a problem. And y'all know me. Y'all know what happened. I couldn't take it. I just couldn't take it. I just couldn't take it. So I just, I was in the meeting, one of the meetings, one of our staff meetings, and I just told them, I couldn't tell the people about their rights. I said, can I tell these people about their rights? No. Can I tell the people about what the city's planning? No. Can I tell them what I'm there for? No. So the assistant city manager looked at me and said, I think you forgot who you work for. You work for us. You don't work for them. And my mind was blown at that time. It was blown when he said that, because nobody at that table, remember, I'm the only Black person, because this was a little small town in Southern Ohio. And I'm the only black person. And I looked up at this man and I said, no, actually, I work for them because my salary comes from tax dollars. So they pay the taxes that pay my salary. So in all actuality, I work for them. And y'all know what happened after that. Y'all know me and the assistant city manager was at war. It was war. It was war. So you know what I did? I went back to school. I said, I'm not going to argue with this man. I'm not going to come to work every day and hit up these people. I'm not doing that. That's not what I'm doing. So you know what I did? I said, let me just go back to school and let me just get another master's degree and get one in education. Because guess what, y'all? I thought education was free from racism. What planet was I on? Okay. Early in my career, I would get asked, Are you in the call center? No, I'm serious. That's the kind of stuff you get asked. Yeah, you do. They just assume that you cannot have no position of power. You cannot. Like Kanye said, they just assume you the secretary. Yeah. hmm Because it still exists and it's alive and well. Hey Jania, good evening, Kiki and Robin I am. Hey Jania, how you doing? Because it's alive and well. It is alive and well. Let's see. Hey Jania, good evening. Yeah, it is alive and it is well, y'all. So those are the things. So after that, me and this man, we go to war. We just go to war. Okay. I couldn't deal with it. I was like, I'm not gonna come to work every day and hit up these poor people and smile in their face and try to and I'm undermining them and taking their houses from them. I'm not doing this. So that's when I said, I'm just gonna go back to school and I'll just, get me another master's in education. And that's when I started studying education. And that's when I started studying um, I realized that how disadvantaged African Americans were when it came to education. So I started studying what was the causes of that. Where was the breakdown? And there's a huge breakdown in our culture, in African American culture and education. There is a tremendous breakdown. We do not understand that. We do not understand this thing called education. All right, so let's talk about education. Education. Now, you're not going to believe this, okay? So, Black children, I was just talking about preschool and how important preschool is to children. How preschool gives your child a strong foundation. Preschool gives your child a head start on life, period. All right. So, guess what it said about preschool, y'all? 18% of the kids who go to preschool, out of the 100% of the kids who go to preschool, only 18% of those kids are African American students. And you can tell when they come to regular school because they won't know their alphabet. They won't know their numbers. They won't know how to hold a book. They won't know anything about a book. Yeah, these are the things that this is what's going on in our community while people are playing and acting like they're the saviors. And our people are over here really suffering. And they're on YouTube playing. So, Black students make up 50% of suspensions. So think about that. 50% of the people getting suspended from school are Black students. When they examined all age groups, they didn't just look at one age group, okay? They looked at all age groups, and in all age groups, okay, Black students were 3 times more likely to be suspended than white students. 3 times more likely. Now think about that. 3 times more likely in every age group. In every infraction, it says for every infraction it was, Black students were 3 times more likely to be suspended than white students for the same infraction. And why is that? Because of the systemic racism. That's why. That's because it has to be okay. It has to be a system that says it's okay to suspend these kids at 3 times higher rate than you do other races. It has to be. It has to be. It just has to be. Black students represent 16% of the students enrolled in school. Now that's not even 20%. Out of all the students in the United States, Black students represent less than 20%. Less than 20%. Because at a certain point, they quit going to school. And I see that firsthand, y'all, because I've worked at all levels of the educational system. I've worked as low as kindergarten, to the university level. To the university level. I've even taught graduate school, okay? I've even taught graduate school. And I see it at every level. At every level, I have seen it. So these are not lies. These are not lies. 27% of the students, of these students, are referred to law enforcement. So not only do they get suspended, the school gonna call the police on them and try to get them into juvenile justice. Not try to, because once the school calls, they're gonna get them inside the juvenile justice system. And once they're in that, here we go. That's why they call it the pipeline to prison. Because see, once they get in that juvenile system, the next step, they're gonna go to the adult prison. So it says, listen to this now. Once Black children are in the criminal justice system, because these are Black children. These are Black children. If they're under the age of 18, they're not adults. They're teenagers and they're children. All right. So these Black teenagers and these Black children, once they are inside this justice system, guess what? They are 18% more likely than other groups to be sentenced as adults. Just think how many times you've watched the news and it will say that, oh, this person is on there and they're going to be tried as an adult. This 16-year-old, this 15-year-old, this 13-year-old is going to be tried as an adult. Yes, and if they're African American, the chances of that happening is even higher. All right. So the criminal justice system. Oh, let me see if there's any questions. Got any questions about that? No. All right, y'all let me know if y'all can hear me now. If y'all can't hear me, okay? So now we're going to talk about the criminal justice system because I want you to get a clear picture, a clear understanding of what systemic racism is, okay? Because you've got to understand that. You've got to understand what African Americans face, what we deal with daily. This is daily we deal with this. We confront this daily. And everywhere we turn, even when we go to the bank. When we go to the bank, we have to deal with this. Let me tell you one time I went to the bank. My mother wrote me a check. My mother always writes me checks. She wrote me a check. It was only a $500 check. That's not a big amount of money. $500. All right. But I go to the bank. Do you know the teller refuses to cash the check? I'm like, why? She sees the money's in the account for the check to clear. She sees my ID. She refused to cash the check. Do you know I refused to leave? I said, well, you're going to have to tell me why you're not cashing my check because I want to know. Because I know the money is in the account. You can call my mother and even ask her. I even picked up the phone. I called my mother and said, Mom, do you know they up here not cashing my check that you wrote me? She said, why? I said, I don't know. I refused to leave the line. Y'all know what they did? Do you know they called the police? They called the police on me. I kid y'all not. They called the police, the sheriff. They worse than the police. That's the big boys. I'm standing there and I said, okay, well, I'm not leaving. I'm going to wait for them right here. So they come in, y'all. They come in. They come in the bank like gangbusters. They got their hand on their gun. They all excited. They think they got somebody. They come in, they bust the door open. Wait a minute, let me drink this. They come in, they bust the door open. I said, I think y'all looking for me. They, got they looking. Well, no, I'm sorry, the guns ain't out. That's a lie. The guns they had their hand on their guns. On their guns, okay? They looking. I said, I think one go this way, one go the other way, on the other side of me. I turned to the other one that's on the other side of me, and I said, I think y'all looking for me. Excuse me. He said, what? He put his arms down. I said, I think y'all looking for me. He said, what? He said, what's going on, man? And I told him. I showed him the check. The other one came over there. And he said, this is her. And then the bank people, they asked the bank people, was this the lady? They said, yeah, this is her. So he told me, come over here. Let's talk about it. I showed them the check. I called my mom. They see the money's in there. They said, ma'am, we don't know why they won't cash this check, but this is their bank and they can do that. They said, would you please just leave? And I said, yes, I will. So when I was leaving, y'all, this old white man started yelling things at me. I don't know what he was saying, but he was saying something. He started yelling at me. The police was walking on the side of me. The sheriff turned around and said, you say another word and I'm going to take you in. You should have seen the white man, the old white man. He shut up so fast. But they walked me out and I left. Okay. But you tell me, if I was a white lady and my mom was a white lady, you think they would have did all that? You think I would have got the police called on me? The sheriff, of all things, the sheriff called on me like I'm trying to rob a bank. And I got a check right there. I got an ID right there. I got everything you need right there to cash this check. But you're refusing. And you can't tell me why. You won't even give me a reason why. And because I'm holding you accountable, you call the sheriff on me? My mind was blown and the sheriff's was blown. So that's what I'm telling you. That's what I'm telling y'all. This is real. This is really, really real. Okay. Hey, Empath in London, how you doing? Yeah, this is real. This is really, really real. And it's just what you do. Worked at a bank in the South, and I found the notes in the database system that log a description of every Black man that entered it. Probably still do. Can y'all believe that? I believe it though. I'm telling you. When you work in these places and you see the systemic racism and it's business as usual, and when you say something or when you got a problem with it, you're the problem? You become the problem? How does that even work? But that's how it goes. And when you want to play by the rules, their rules, when you want to play by those games, because you want to be a part of them so bad. You want to be a part of this systemic racist system so bad that you sell out your own people, that you sell out poor people, that you sell out the vulnerable people in our population. And you, the educated person, you're not vulnerable. You went to school. You had a chance to go to school. You had a chance to experience all type of things. And you're going to use your education to systemically practice racism against your own people or against other minorities or against poor whites, because don't think they don't hit the poor whites up too. Because if you're a poor white person, you're going to get hit up too. They don't care about you either. And that's real, because these people I was hitting up, they wanted me to hit up, were poor whites and blacks. This thing in this country is about money. And that's what we got to realize. It's not about this. It's not about this. It's about that green. Like the OJs say, that mean green. Y'all need to listen to y'all that song I keep telling y'all. People in love with money. That's what this country is all about. Money. Money, money, money. Okay, what? Because you won't leave the bank. Because I wouldn't leave the bank. Because I wanted them to tell me why. Why you won't cash the check? Why? Why are you not going to cash this check? You see my ID. You see my mom's ID. My mother's been at this bank forever. You see all of that. She's even on the phone willing to talk to you, but you don't want to talk to her. No, you want to call the police on me. That's why the police was looking at her like, what, lady? We're not doing. Like, are you crazy? Are you trying to get us in trouble? We're not doing that. Yeah, they didn't know what to do. They knew what it was. They knew this was a case of systemic racism, and they couldn't do anything about it because they're a part of that system too. They're a part of that system too. But they know now they're turning on them and they shining the light on them, and they're like, okay, y'all done it a little bit too much, and y'all getting caught, and we don't want to be a part of it. So the police, they trying to handle themselves a little bit. But yeah, they part of that system too. So let's see, where did we stop at? Let's see. We stopped with the students, the prison system. Criminal justice. This is another area where we're highly discriminated against, all right? Black people make up, again, 13% of the population of the United States. This is what you got to envision. 13%. Let's just round it up to 15. 15% of 100. There's 100 pieces in this pie. 15% of those pieces are African Americans, okay? Nearly, not even a whole, nearly. 40% of that little population make up the prison system. 40% of the prison system is made up of that little population. Now think about that. So you want me to believe all African Americans are criminals? But this is the picture they paint of us, though. That we're criminals. Because I just seen a video today, believe it or not, y'all, my mind was blown because it was for real. It was on the news. And I think it was some university, Virginia, I think. I don't remember what university. It was a black university. But they had a lacrosse team. I think they were in Georgia or someplace. They stopped them. They stopped the bus. Okay? Stopped the bus, y'all. Went through the girls' suitcases. Basically accused the girls of having marijuana, having drugs, telling them they're going to find the drugs. They're looking through their personal belongings. Don't have a reason to do have no probable cause. They didn't smell marijuana. They didn't see any drug paraphernalia. But what they saw is these were black young women on a tour bus. So, Lil Wayne got drugs on his bus. So they must got drugs on their bus. Lil Wayne is black and he on a tour bus. They black and they on a tour bus. Let's treat them all the same. Systematic. They went through all of their luggage. This one girl got a little gift from her aunt. You should have heard how the police officer was talking to her. And these little girls you could tell they had never encountered anything like this. They were so respectable to these police. I couldn't believe it. Thank God it wasn't a group of young black men, because it would have turned out ugly. Because the black men wouldn't have went for that. But the girls, they were so scared they didn't know what to do. But this is what I'm telling you, this is systematic. You're black, you're young, you got drugs. I don't care if you're at the university. I don't care if you are a university. You're a black university. I know y'all got drugs. This just happened. Just happened. This was just in the news. So, okay. That's what I'm saying. So you want us to believe that. No, you think that. That is the myth that they put out about us. So they have to use their system to make this true. And that's what they do. Okay? 20% of us, when we go before the court system for crimes, we are 20% more likely to be sentenced to jail time. Okay? 20% more likely to be sentenced to jail time. And our sentences, not only are we 20% more likely to be sentenced to jail time, but our sentences are 20% longer. So let that soak in. You're more than likely going to be sentenced to jail time 20% more. And that sentence you get is going to be 20% longer. Wow. This is what I'm telling you. This is systematic racism, because this is the way we treat all the young black people, all the black people that come through our system. We treat them this way. We don't care if they have an education. We don't care who they are. We don't care who they are. We don't care what you do, lady. You're black. You're a thief. You probably stole that check. And you probably stole that ID. You fit the description. Let's see. So let me look at your questions before we go into housing. Oh, hello, Kiki. Missed you. Hello. Hey, I missed you too. Hey, Alexis. Hey. Watching. Okay. I'm glad you're here. All right, so let's go to the rest to housing. Let's talk about housing. All right. Let's talk about housing. Okay. So housing, everybody knows about the redlining. This is when we started. We started off being disadvantaged when this housing market started to boom. We were not giving loans to buy houses like other groups were, because we were viewed as risks. Okay, it was risky to buy houses in our neighborhoods, and it was risky to let us live in your neighborhood. All right. So this essentially barred Black people and other minorities from purchasing homes. Okay, in a recent study, they found that because when Black people go to look at homes, all right, you know how when you go look at homes, the real estate agent will show you, a variety of different homes, right? Well, what they found was that when Black people would go to look at homes, the real estate agent would show them fewer homes and apartments than they would their white counterparts. Now think about that. They would show them fewer homes than their white counterparts. Why? I mean, if you didn't have the money to buy it, I don't get that. If you don't have the money to buy it, you wouldn't be looking for it. So you got the money to buy it. You just don't want that person in the neighborhood because they're Black. You don't want that. Your system doesn't want that. You see what I mean? The system will not allow that. So the system will put policies. Redlining was a policy. They put those policies in place so we would be denied access. That's what we got to understand. Now, listen to this. Because a result of everything that's been going on through the years, and then the pandemic, and then everything else that's happened, they said now Black ownership is now at an all-time low. For it's 40% low, 40 compared to whites, okay? 42% African Americans have own homes. Whites own 72% of whites own homes. Okay. And they feel like this is a direct result of the historical redlining, and it's also a direct result of being shown fewer houses and apartments. And that's true. You know, it's just like I remember when my sons were younger, okay, I knew that one of my sons were he was older than the other, okay, he was a teenager. And I always knew that even though my husband at that time, we made enough money to pretty much live whatever we wanted. I always knew there was always going to be a problem when it came to my oldest son. I always knew that because different neighborhoods didn't want him there. They did not want him there, and it was clear because they would either deny the application, they wouldn't give me a reason why. They would say they wouldn't have any vacancies, you know, and if it was a house, you know, it was always, oh, you know, it was fine until they saw I had a 16-year-old son, and then they just weren't interested in it. You know, it was always, you know, somebody rented it or something else. So I kind of knew when my sons were teenager, when my oldest son was a teenager, I kind of knew I had to live like on the west side of Dayton. I kind of had to live on the west side because, you know, that's where he could be accepted because they weren't renting to us in places where they didn't have a lot of African American teenagers because they did not want them there. And I remember one time we went to this one place where we lived. We went to the library, and my son he wasn't even a teenager then. He was like 12. My other son was like 6. And he was younger than that. But we were in the library, and I was ahead of them. And I remember my eldest son came in, and the security guard said to him, "Don't you come in here making all that noise. Don't you come in here being all rude. Don't you come in here being all disrespectful." And he said, "Make sure you pull up those pants." And I was like, "What?" You know, I turned around, and the man, I realized he didn't know that was my son. He didn't know we were together, okay? Because he greeted me and he was nice to me. But look how he treated my son. So I turned around and I was going to say something to him, but I didn't. I just told my son to come here, to come with me. So I told him to come with me and stay with me. You know, I told him, make sure, you know, pull your pants up, make sure your belt is tight. Because, you know, that's when the kids want to be, you know, they want to sag and everything. And I said, pull your belt up, you know, tighten your belt and, you know, pull your pants up. So, but I told him just, you know, I said, when we got in the car, I was so disturbed by what that man had said to my son because I realized that my son, it hit me at that time that my son was a Black male growing up in the United States, and that I saw him as my perfect son, but the world saw him as a criminal. They just instantly saw him as a criminal. They saw him as a troublemaker. And that was my first time actually seeing how the world was perceiving my son. And, you know, when I got it, I was hurt for him. I was hurt because I knew my son was not like that. He was only in like, what, the 7th grade? We had just came home. I picked him up from school, you know, and you get accused of doing a troublemaker, doing this and doing that because your pants are not pulled all the way up. Are you serious? And this was a Black man. The security guard was Black. He was not white. This was a Black man. That's what I'm telling you. Systemic racism. You're going to be a part of this. To be in this system, you got to be a part of this system. And you got to practice what we do. He didn't care. So when we got back to the car, we got in the car, I told my son, I said, you know, I'm really sorry that that man judged you like that. And I'm really sorry that that man talked to you like that. I said, but this is just the reality of America. And this is what you're going to have to deal with. People always judging you from their own notions, their own preconceived notions of who you are, all because of who you look, how you look, all because of how you look. Because he had braids in his hair and he was sagging. He was only 12 years old. Come on. He still didn't even know who he wanted to be. But you prejudged him as a criminal at 12 years old. So after I told him that, he said, okay, he understood. And we moved on. And again, that wasn't the first experience he had being prejudged, and it wasn't the last. Let me see if you guys can I say, okay, you said playback. I knew that's what you meant. So, okay, let me go over here. And let's see. So, this I thought was interesting about surveillance. That's why I said there's always new categories. Because the last time I studied this, surveillance was not on here. Wealth was not on here. Surveillance wasn't on here. Okay. So surveillance, listen to this. Black drivers are 30% more likely than white drivers to be pulled over. I thought all that had really changed since they were doing that scanning the license plate. They scan your license plate. So I thought that scanning your license plate was really stopping that racial profiling, but I guess it's not. So they said African Americans are expected that you might as well expect to be monitored everywhere you go, and I do. From the time I leave this house, seriously, y'all, I'm monitored. There's cameras on my street. This city has cameras everywhere. So me driving all through this city, they're monitoring. When I get to work, when I get to the next city that I drive through to get to work, cameras. Because that's their urban downtown district. So they got cameras everywhere. You're under surveillance there. When I get to work, from the time I get there to the time I leave, I'm under surveillance. The only time I'm not under surveillance is when I'm in the restroom. Even when I'm in my room, I'm under surveillance. Yes. In the hallway, under surveillance. Everything you do is under surveillance. Yes. So if you don't recognize that, you better recognize that. So, African Americans, they said you're expected to be dealing with being monitored everywhere you go. That's the reality of our life, is that we have to deal with and accept that we are monitored everywhere we go. That's why we're walking around in the Gambia with cameras, shining them up in everybody's face, because that's how we live here. We used to being on camera. We used to being on camera, so we feel like, oh, it's not a big deal. Everybody's used to this. So that's why, because we're always under surveillance, all right? But they said, listen to this. We got to get used to we're expected to be used to being monitored and under surveillance everywhere we go. But guess what? We can't even walk down the street and be safe. Because listen to this. This was alarming. They said Black people are twice as likely to die in pedestrian accidents than whites. Now think about that. Let me repeat that. Black people are more likely to die, to be hit by a car when they're walking down the street than a white person. And I thought about that, and I just said, okay, let me just do a simple survey off the top of my head. Think about the last people you can remember in your city who got hit by a car and died. What color were they? The last 3 people who were hit by a car and died, because that's like doesn't happen every day. But the last 3 people, y'all, I kid you not, were African American, and they were getting off the bus, walking home from work. And guess what they said? They said Black people are twice as likely to die in pedestrian accidents than white people. A study revealed. Let me repeat that. That Black people are twice as likely to die. And y'all know why? You're not going to believe it. Because motorists are less likely to stop for Black people in a crosswalk than they are for white people. So if they see the Black person in the crosswalk, more than likely they won't stop. But if they see a white person, they said they're more than likely they will stop. And that's why we're getting hit by cars when we're walking down the street, because they're not stopping for us. Now think about that. Just think about that. You're not even stopping for us when we're walking down the street. We're walking down, getting off the, and that's what these people were doing. Getting off the bus, walking down the street, in the crosswalk, hit by cars because they're Black. And systemic racism tell me a Black life, I can just hit them and keep it moving. And the research says that also. So let's see. What you see the comments. That's the fear that I have when I have children, because no matter how much money I make or what I do, they will always be true. Yeah, they will. But you know, that's something that you just have to you have to teach them that. And in reality and in all honesty, you have to teach your kids about racism. You have to tell. I was always taught that, even at the universities that I went to. You know, I was always told, okay, you know, things are going to be a little different for you. And that's just the reality of life. You're probably going to have to work twice as hard. I was always told that in my life. My grandma always told me things are not going to be fair for you. Your set of rules are going to be completely different from the next man's set of rules. So you're just going to have to do you. You're going to have to work hard. You're going to have to stay focused, because life ain't fair. I remember she always would say that. She would always say, life ain't fair. Yeah. And that's what you got to do. Just teach them like I taught my sons. You're going to have to deal with racism. And that's the reality of it. You're going to have to deal with people calling you the N-word. You're going to have to deal with people not liking you because you come from the ethnic group, the African American. You are going to have to deal with people not liking you because you were raised to speak your mind. You were raised to stand up for what you believe in. You are going to have to deal with people not liking you because of that alone. You're going to have to deal with people hating you because you love you. And that's the reality for the African American. That's our reality. And that's real. We only stand tall because we choose to. This systemic racism that I'm reading to you, nothing about that creates pride. Nothing about that creates anything to make you feel good about yourself. That's why people are so disconnected from Africa, because of this racism, this systemic racism, because it puts Africa down everywhere you turn. And who wants to be a part of that? Who wants to be a part of that? Oh, hey, Mindy. Okay, everybody, this is one of my family members. This is my niece, everybody. But it hasn't been like that for more than before. Yeah, it's been like that for a long time. Yeah, it's been like that for a long time. It's been like that for a long, long time. Maybe for Oregon. Yeah. I don't know. But it's been like this for a long time. It's been like this for a long, long, long time, y'all. A long time. a long time. But now they're doing research and they're talking about it. Okay, so that's the thing, and that's another thing they were doing too. I mean, for people who don't know what name are you on here, Lulu? What Lulu brought up was that people don't realize that, but there's a lot of missing young Black people in this country, and they believe that they're harvesting their organs. Also, they're being sex trafficked, and along with being sex trafficked, they believe that some of those people's organs are being harvested also. All right. So look, now we're going to talk about healthcare. This was really sad, y'all. This was really sad. And I think we're going to get off here early tonight. Okay, then I got to tell y'all what we're going to do after that, because some things are going to change. Y'all know I'm getting ready to go to Africa. I'm going to be there for a minute. So, the Gambia, not Africa, the Gambia. So we're going to change the time of the show. So we're going to start doing that next week. Next week we'll start changing the time of the show. And it might change again when I get there, depending on everything. So we're going to talk about that when we're finished, because we're almost finished with this. Yeah, I'm so tired. That would be nice if we could get off here tonight. Yes, it looks like we can. And some of the people who say they can't watch because it's so long, this will be a shorter show and you can watch it. Okay, so hold on. Let me go to the next point, healthcare. So listen to this. In 2012, a study found a majority of doctors, this was so sad because I knew this was true, unconsciously, had racial biases against their Black patients. Now think about that. They have unconscious racial biases against their Black patients. These are doctors. 2012, 10 years ago, they took this study. 10 years ago. 10 years ago. They did a study. I bet they're not trying to do this study again no time soon. Unconscious racial biases against their own patients. Yes. And let me tell you about my experience with that. Y'all know I had a knee problem, right? So, going to new doctors, I had to find an orthopedic surgeon that I liked, right? Excuse me, you go to different doctors. But in the meantime, you know, this doctor started telling you as soon as you come in, they're not going to give you pain medicine. And I'm like, but I didn't ask for pain medicine. I don't take pain medicine. So why would you assume I want pain medicine? And then it started clicking in me, because you're Black. And they think because you're Black, you want pain medicine. No, I don't want pain medicine. I don't take pain medicine. I don't take pain medicine. And if they would take the time to look through my chart, my medical records, they would see that I don't take pain medication. But their stereotypes, like this study said, their unconscious racial biases wouldn't let them see that. Their unconscious racial biases said to them, this lady's a drug seeker. She's got this knee pain. She's got to be in a lot of pain. This knee has got to be bothering her. She's got to be here seeking drugs. What else could she come here for? She's Black. Could be I wanted him to come and fix my knee so I wouldn't be in pain. But yeah, yes. Now listen, Black Americans are far more likely than whites to lack access to emergency medical care. Now, just in my city alone, I don't know about y'all cities, but in Dayton, on the west side where the Black people live, there's no hospital. There's no hospital. I think, no, I'll take that back. There's one hospital over there now. There's one hospital. They've closed down all the hospitals. They've closed down all the hospitals. So you got to go to this one hospital, to this one emergency room, and this hospital is small. That's the only hospital left over there. This is where the poor people live, poor whites, poor Blacks, poor Mexicans. No, the Mexicans don't live over there. They don't live with us like that. The white people will. But the Mexicans now, they won't live with us. But there's no hospitals over there. One hospital. That's it. This is exactly what this study was talking about. We don't have equal access. We don't have equal access to emergency medical care. So you got to drive if you have a car, because a lot of poor people don't have cars. You got to drive from the west side where most of the African Americans live, and all the African Americans are not poor. They just live, on the west side. You got to drive all the way to the other side of town to go to the emergency room. So this is true. This is what's going on in urban areas. If you live in an urban area, or if you check out this, if you live in a suburban area, check out the urban area around you and see what's going on there. See if they've closed hospitals. See how African Americans have access to emergency medical care. Okay. The hospitals they go to, listen to this. I just told you about that hospital. Did I tell you it was a little small hospital, little small emergency room? Listen to what they said. And the hospitals that they go to are less likely to have funding. They're not funded equally. They're not staffed equally. Listen to this. The practitioners will have less medical experience. So we don't even have access to good health practitioners. No, we don't. We don't, because you have to choose to come work in a side of town where African Americans live. You have to choose to work on that side of town, because you could just ignore that side of town. And a lot of the professionals do not choose to work on that side of town, because what are they going to get? Probably Medicaid, not regular health insurance. They're going to get Medicaid, which is going to pay them less. So these are the realities of it. This is true. This is what our world looks like. This is what we face every single day. Every single day we get up, we dust off our shoes, and we go out that door. This is what we're dealing with. From the time we born to the time we die, we are dealing with this systematic racism. So Black doctors, let's see, Black doctors even face discrimination. The Black doctors, now listen, the Black doctors are less likely than their white counterparts with the same credentials to receive grants for research projects. And that's where the money is, okay? That's how you make money, with grants from research projects, okay? So I've worked for different doctors who had got grants, okay? And with these grants, they could do different research projects. And you could grow your office, you could grow your staff, and you could really kind of help your community, because you could find out what were underlying issues that were causing health problems in the community that you were serving. But I'm telling you, I've never, ever worked for a Black doctor. I never researched for a Black doctor. Never. So this finding does not surprise me at all. Okay. Facing a lifetime of race. Now listen to this, y'all. The study said facing a lifetime of racism leaves African Americans vulnerable to developing stress-related health care issues that tend to lead to chronic issues later on in life. So as we're growing up with this systemic racism, it puts us under so much pressure, okay, that we develop stress-related health issues that become chronic issues later on in life. And guess what one of them was? High blood pressure. How many African Americans have high blood pressure? Yeah, high blood pressure. That's one of the ones they say comes from systemic racism. Yeah. Okay, so this author, he says, he wants you to know, he says, let me be clear. Systemic racism is a corrosive and widespread problem in American society, and we need to do a better job at confronting it. He believes that economics is the root cause for systemic racism. So that was what systemic racism is. I'm going to tell you in a minute. That shouldn't take us long. How this racism is affecting us, our mental health. All right, let me get these questions. So that's what it was. That was deep, wasn't it? Also, doctors get kickback for each medication they give. They sure do, honey. That was another thing. That's why I don't take medicine like that. Because they will get kicked. Some of them get kickbacks for that medicine. Yes, most Black neighborhoods, they do not have many hospitals. See, in my neighborhood, with most Jews with 3 hospitals in less than a 2-mile radius. Look at that. Yeah, that's how it is here. Speaking from experience, I've had to fight for my quality of care with my specialist as I realized I wasn't being treated in the same manner as the pale blonde person. Yeah, that's what the study said. We're not. We are not treated the same. Here in Texas, we have to pay for preschool. It's only free for those whose English is their second language. We have to pay for it here now also. We used to didn't, but now we do. Now kids have to pay for preschool. Tennessee said, hey, sadly, we always have to fight. Yep, we do. We always have to fight for everything. All right, so let's go to this systemic racism, how has this systemic racism impacted us? All right, so we talked about where we look, everywhere you go. Everywhere you go, even when you graduate from college, you do everything they tell you to do. You stay out of trouble, you get married, you have kids, you do everything, but you still affected by this systemic racism. All right, it's this book called The Rage of a Privileged Class, and in this book, that's what the author was talking about. The privileged class was the African Americans who got to go to school, okay, who thought once they graduated from school, there would be a carpet waiting for them and jobs lined up for them, and that was not the case. That was not the case. The jobs weren't lined up for the whites. They daggone sure was not lined up for the Blacks. So what jobs that went out that were lined up, those were for rich kids whose family had jobs for them. Then we had to compete with the other white kids who were just white alone, and us Black. So they got those jobs. Then the other Black kids, the Black highly educated people, they didn't get anything. So that's what this book was about, was how you do all of this and you still don't get access. You're still denied access. You go to school, you become educated, and still you don't have access. So now we're going to talk about how racism affects your mental health. In this study, they said a lifetime exposure tends to create something that's called racial trauma. Okay. Racial trauma is it sounds to me like it's they're going to try to do it as a mental illness eventually. That's what it's not now. It's not considered a mental illness, but it sounds like that whoever these people are, they're trying to make this into a mental illness. Okay. Racial trauma is a race-based traumatic stress. So it's a traumatic stress disorder, okay? But it's race-based, okay? And it stems from being exposed to abuse or discrimination. So you're constantly exposed to racial abuse. Well, not constantly, but you're exposed to racial abuse or racial discrimination. Okay. What it does is that once this exposure, they said it erodes your sense of self worth and it leads to anxiety. All right. So African Americans will develop a low sense of self worth and it will lead to a sense of anxiety amongst the African American people. And guess what else? After the anxiety, African Americans tend to develop depression. They have chronic stress, and they suffer from. It will lead to high blood pressure, eating disorders, and substance abuse. So, y'all, if I know about this racial trauma, and I'm telling y'all about this racial trauma, this traumatic stress disorder that comes when you're constantly, not constantly, you ain't got it constantly, but when you're racially abused or you're racially discriminated against. And I just told y'all it causes low self-worth, anxiety, which in turn leads to depression. It leads to chronic stress. It leads to high blood pressure. Y'all think the powers that be don't know? You think they don't know? You think they don't know what systematic racism does to the African American mentally? I would beg to differ that they do know. And that's why it's done like that. Because if I can break you down in here, it's all over. If I can get in here and I tear you apart in there, I don't have to do anything to you physically. If I can tear your mind apart, then I have you. I own you. Even symptoms of PTSD, such as hypervigilance, negative thoughts, and mood changes. Racial trauma can be passed down from one generation to the next through the recounting of these racial experiences. For example, when you talk about like how my grandmother used to tell me when we were little, she would tell us about these stories about my uncle and how they grew up on a sharecropping. My great grandma used to sharecrop, and I had an uncle. Okay, my uncle, he was a big man. You know, he was a big guy, and he didn't take no stuff. He was known for not taking no. He was no nonsense. All right. So he had got into it with one of these white men in the town that day. Got into it real bad with the white man. So, man's name was Mr. Potts. I'll never forget his name. He owned the land my grandma used to sharecrop on. He came and told my grandma, "You're gonna have to get your son out of town because they coming for him tonight." Okay. So I didn't understand what that meant. Us kids, we didn't know what they was talking about. What you mean they coming for him tonight? So she didn't answer. She said she told us what happened. She said they packed up his stuff and they put him on a train because she said behind their house was some railroad tracks. Okay. And she said he went on the railroad tracks and he hopped trains. She said he hopped the train all the way to Memphis, Tennessee. And we had family in Memphis, Tennessee. So they didn't get him. So he got away. He had to change his name. Yeah. Once he left Georgia, he had to change his name. And he went to Memphis, Tennessee, stayed there for a while. Then he came up here to Ohio with a whole new different identity. So telling a child's story like that, then we were like, well, what was the white people going to do to him? And my grandmother was like, well, the white people would have killed him. Because back then, you couldn't talk back to white people. You couldn't disrespect white people. Because if you did, if you stood up to them, they would kill you. So my family was known for that. My grandmothers were known for that, but they were respected for that. My grandmother was respected for that. So they didn't really mess with her. But when her son did it, they were like, oh no, you got to go. You're not about to do what your mother did. So that's when they were like, you got to go. And they sent him away. But just the retelling of that story. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Something scared me. I didn't know the kids was in the kitchen. But okay. So just the retelling of that story, you know, it traumatizes a kid. And they're saying those experiences are what give us that stress disorder. You know, we may not have went through it, but as a kid, when you're told these family stories, you know, you relive it. And then as you get older, you start going through your own racial experiences, your own traumatic experiences. And that's when this stress traumatic disorder starts. And it starts to churn inside of you and grow. And then you go down this path. So let's see. Okay, let me see what else. Uh, they said it's passed down from generation to the next. I just talked about the stories, okay? Is one way it's passed down. And listen to this, y'all. This was really something that was really shocking. They said research has shown that by the time a black baby is a year old, they have higher levels of the stress hormone cortisol than white infants. Think about that, how terrible that is. That by the time a black child, an infant, is 1 year old, it has experienced so much stress that the stress hormone cortisol is showing up in black babies at higher percentages than their white counterparts. This is how much stress we are under in this country. All of us. All of us. All of us. That right there, when I read that, that was really disturbing. Really disturbing. Yeah, I've had a lawyer up several times to fight for my kids throughout the years, but I allowed them to be profiled, harassed, but I allowed them to be profiled and harassed, nor set up for failure by the system, because that's what the job is. That's what the job is. Hey, calculator. Yeah, yeah, that's what the job is. That's what the job is for. That's their job right there. Now the banks, look, I withdraw my money and place money on my Visa prepaid card. Why let them make money? Right, off of what I earn. No, I'm good. I save my own money. You know, and that's what the older people used to do. Remember, back in the day, they used to save their own money. My grandmother did not trust banks. She did not put her money in the bank. She would go cash her money at the bank and she would come back home. She put her money in her Bible. And she would have little secret departments, secret little compartments, not departments, compartments. She would hide money in, but she did not put money in the bank. No, she was not putting any money in the bank. She was not doing that. For monthly expenses is what the prepaid card for, yep. And then the rest, the cash is there. Tania, in some cases, yes, but to grow your money to pass wealth, you're going to need some type of bank. So you're talking about investments. All right. So let's go and finish this up, y'all, because I'm getting sleepy. Racism and the barriers to mental health. So we already said they know this systematic racism is going to make us depressed. No, it's going to traumatize us first. It's going to create this traumatic stress because it's going to, these stories and these experiences will create this traumatic stress in us. This traumatic stress in us is going to create this depression. This depression is going to create these chronic stress health issues, which are like high blood pressure and What else did they say? Post-traumatic stress disorder. Symptoms, we'll start seeing those type of symptoms in African Americans because they've been exposed to this systematic racism. So you would think, okay, so we know this, so let's see if we can get them some help, right? We know that some of us are going through this. We can see it on YouTube. There's people going through this on YouTube. There's content creators on YouTube clearly going through breakdowns. We as a people need to confront these people and let them know you need help. And you can tell by the way they talk, because they'll talk like I'm talking. What I've just said, what I've described, they'll focus on those things constantly. See, somebody who focuses on those things constantly, they're stuck in that traumatic. They're caught up in that mental health issue. They're caught up in that traumatic disorder, and they need help. And we're going to talk about that. So, racism and the barriers to mental health care. Not only does racism trigger mental health problems such as depression, anxiety, and trauma. Listen to that. Depression, anxiety, and trauma. The people who commit racism, they really should be brought up on some kind of criminal charges. This should be a crime. Well, it is a crime. What am I saying? Yeah, you can't do that here. It is a crime. It is a crime. I forgot. But it's a civil. Well, no, we have hate crimes. You can't do this here. You can't. Okay? Because it should. Listen. Depression, anxiety, and trauma. That's what it does. It also adds barriers. If there's added barriers to getting help when you're African American. For many Black people and minorities, there's a disparity to access to mental health. Now, let me tell y'all this, how I know this is true. In my city, we had this place called Daymont West, and we had this place called East Point. They dealt with mental health, okay? One on the east side, one on the west side. Do you know they closed them places down? Do you know they closed Daymont West down? They closed East Point down. Do you know there's no mental health places for the mentally ill people here? None. If you don't have insurance, you're not getting no mental health. You're not getting mental health because all those clinics are gone. They're gone. And when you go to Dayton, the heart of Dayton, you know what you see? You even see them out here now. You see them one or two out here. No, you see them more than that now. You'll see mentally ill people just walking around. Just walking around. Like the Walking Dead. And you're wondering what's going on. What's going on? There's no money for mental health. There's none. So these people are left just to pretty much roam on their own. So there's little to zero resources in mental health. That's the first problem. The second problem, which I know this to be true, is the stigma of mental health in our community. Mental health in the African American community still carries a stigma for many people, including Blacks and minorities. Listen to this. Black men, for example, see having a mental health problem as a sign of weakness. Yes. Black men see depression, anxiety, trauma as a sign of weakness. Those are the stigmas. All right? Also, rather than to seek help, Black people will more than likely bottle their feelings up where they won't talk about them, or they'll just suffer in silence. All right, since I can see I don't have no questions, I'm gonna keep going, y'all. So that's what they'll do. We're gonna bottle our feelings up, and we're not gonna talk about it, or we're just gonna suffer in silence, and we're gonna think we're the only ones that this is happening to, and that we're such a bad person, and that I'm such a messed up person. I keep losing jobs. I can't keep my mouth shut. blah, 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 blah. When it's really that systematic racism that's put in place for you not to succeed. All right. So listen, then what do they say after that? Too few. Okay, now they're going to talk about whether, okay, there's another issue. These are the issues why this is prevalent in our community, okay? So first there's a stigma. The doctors are saying first there's a stigma. This is why this is prevalent in the African American community, because they're not seeking help. They're just leaving, they're being traumatized daily, and they're bottling up, they're just stuffing it inside, or they're just acting like it's not happening, or they just think it's just happening to them. Then second, another thing is the doctors are saying there's too few Black minority therapists, okay? They said Black or minority therapists. Most of the therapists in the United States, in the West, are white. The doctors feel like this, not having any Black or enough Black therapists to address these mental health issues is one of the main reasons. Well, not the main, well, it is the main reason. Okay, it was reason number 2. It was reason number 2 why racism, systemic racism, continues to cause mental problems in our community. And that's because we don't have access. There's not enough Black people in the field, and we don't want to go to other people. And then they said this is another problem, is that studies have indicated, now listen to this, people, that white therapists misdiagnose Blacks. They misinterpret Black people's experiences. Okay, so when we start talking about our experiences with racism, they won't know that, they won't classify that as systematic racism. Okay, they'll classify that as some other type of mental illness. They won't even think about systematic racism or the trauma behind that. So they said instead of what they'll do, they said they'll misdiagnose them, which leads to a dangerous misdiagnosis like this. Listen, Black men, for example, are much more likely to be incorrectly diagnosed with schizophrenia than their white counterparts. Schizophrenia. They know you live in this systematic racist society. They know everywhere you turn from the time you are born, you experience some type of systematic racism. If it's not systematic, it's interpersonal, but you're getting it from everywhere. But not one time do they say the reason you're depressed, the reason you feel like the whole world is against you, is because of the system you live in. They don't do that because they don't know that, because that's not their reality. So they can't tell you about your reality because they don't know your reality. So the doctor says that's one of the main causes, that's why they just misdiagnose, because they misinterpret your experience. All right, so then he says, in another study, they don't reach out to others. He said we got to reach out to others to share our pain. That's one thing we don't do. He said the doctor said the first step for us to healing from this systematic racism is to be open and honest, like we just did tonight, how we were open and honest about our experiences in racism, with systematic racism. I talk about systematic racism all the time. I've been on so many different panels talking about my experiences with systematic racism. Yes, I talk about it all the time. I share. I let people ask me questions. What was it like? What was it like to be the only Black person there? What did that feel like? What does it feel like when you're discriminated against? These are the things you got to do. You got to open up your pain. You got to open up that pain. And you got to share that pain, because your pain is going to heal somebody else. Not only is it going to heal you, it's going to heal somebody else. So it says reach out. That's the first step, is reaching out, all right? And share your experiences with others. Just like we did tonight. We reached out, we shared our experiences, we shared our pain, we shared our experience with systematic racism, and that's how the healing begins, all right? And it says in a study, Black women, it was found that Black women who opened up regularly about their experiences of everyday racism were less likely to exhibit signs of chronic stress, premature aging, and ill health than those who kept their experiences to themselves. You see why it's important to share what you go through. It's important for us to come together and talk about our experiences. It's important for us to come together and tell what we've been through. It's important for us to come together and say, this is how I healed myself. Because when you share your experiences, somebody's going to grow. So it may be one person who needed to hear that, and they can learn and grow from that. So that's why it's crucial that you do that. And when those Black women did that, when they opened up about their experiences every day, look what happened to them. They didn't exhibit any signs of chronic stress, premature aging, or ill health, because they let that go. They let that disease of systematic racism that people try to put on us. They let that go. That dirtiness, that shame from that. They let that go. They didn't take ownership of that. So every time it happened to them, they talked about it. And they talked about how messed up it was that you tried to make me feel bad about myself because of the color of my skin. And then that's going to make you think, but how bad does that person feel about themselves to try to make me hate myself because of the color of my skin? See, there's a point when you're going to reach that point. And that point only comes from talking about it, from confronting it, from dealing with it. And that's what these women in the study did. So it says to heal yourself from this, because we can't count on the healthcare system. I just told you that. We don't have access. We don't have people who understand us. We'll probably get misdiagnosed. We won't get treated right. So you got to heal yourself. Like we talk about all the time. You got to heal you. You got to go to your Most High God and you got to heal you. So listen to what they said. Even the doctors are saying that. They're not saying it like that, but this is what they're saying. Listen, they're saying you got to embrace your ethnicity. That's the first thing. They said racism is often used as a weapon to devalue you as a human being and lower your self-esteem. So let me read that again. Racism is used as a weapon. It is a weapon. All right? It is a weapon used to devalue you as a human, as a person. Do you get that? It's used to devalue you, stop, Kelmy, as a person. All right? And it says, and to lower your self-esteem. So not only do I want to devalue you as a person, I want to lower your self-esteem. Because you have too much esteem of yourself. And I don't like that. So I need to lower that. And I need to devalue you as a person. Yes. You can counter that. Now, the way you counter that and help deflect the pain of racism, because that causes pain. That is a painful way to grow up as a child. That is especially if you grow up where you go to school with people who don't look like you. Yes. When you go to school with people who don't look like you, oh, that's a horrible way to grow up because you get made fun of and you get teased all the time. All the time. Let me tell y'all, when I was in second grade, my mother got a good job. She got a job working for GM. So we moved to a different neighborhood. We moved from the west side to over north side. There was white people on the north side. I had never lived with white people. So I went to the second grade. Never went to school with white people until I went to the second grade. Go to the second grade at this new school. We're at this new school probably about a month. Do you know within a month, that new school had me in speech class? That new school had me in therapy sessions. I was going to see a psychologist like I was crazy. And I was only in the second grade. Had me in psychology classes. And they had me in developmental math classes, developmental math and reading classes. Can you believe that? Within a month. Because I was defective. They were letting me know, me and my brothers and sisters know, we were defective. You were defective. You were African American. You're defective. You get pulled out of class and you got to go with the psychologist lady and you got to play with puppets and you got to let Peppers talk with your hand and tell people what's going on in your house because you're African American. So there's got to be some kind of criminal activity going on in your house. So yes, that's a painful way to grow up. So what they're saying is you got to learn to love you because you grow up in a world where you learn early. There's no love for you outside of you. Outside of us, there's no love for us. So if you don't love you, nobody else is. Not in this country. So they said the way you counter this and help deflect that pain of racism, because it teaches you to devalue yourself, teaches you to lower your self-esteem, is by developing a strong sense of ethnic identity. That's what you got to do. So you know what I did? To develop my strong sense of ethnic identity, I studied African American history. I studied African history. I studied the transatlantic slave trade. I studied anything that taught me about me and my people. And that's why I have a strong sense of ethnicity. That's why I have a strong sense of who I am, because I studied that. I studied that because I grew up in segregated Dayton, Ohio, where I told y'all you couldn't go over this side of bridge. After a certain time at night, you had to be back over that bridge. And if you were not over that bridge, you were going to have problems. All right. I work in a city where maybe 5 years ago, when I was teaching at some other school, because you know I'll teach and I'll stop and I'll do something else. So I was teaching back then. I think I was teaching fifth grade. This little boy liked to call the kids the N-word. All right, when he get mad, he wanted to, and the east side of Dayton is where the white people live. Where now it's mixed, but back then it was all white. He want to call the kids the N-word, right? So the kids came and told me. They said he was calling them the N-word. I asked him, was he calling them the N-word? Do you know? He said, yes. I said, so I asked the kids. Then I said, kids, you know, the kids he was saying it to. I said, is he plain calling you the N-word? You know how y'all use the N-word. Is it like that? Or is it the N-word? They said, no, it's the N-word because he only says it when he's mad at us. And that's when I said, okay, he's really calling y'all the N-word. So I went to talk to the principal. Principal calls the mom. Guess what the mom says? The mom says, and I kid y'all not, we use the N-word in our household, and he's allowed to use the N-word. He can say the N-word if he wants to. And furthermore, I don't want that N-word lady teaching my kids. Yes, that's what she told the principal. Yes, I don't want that N-word lady teaching my kids. And we use the N-word in our house freely. I kid y'all not. This is the type of city that I grew up in. All right. This is what this woman said to the principal. The principal said, I was sitting right there. She said, well, guess what? You cannot use that word at this school. He will not use that word at this school. And she will be your son's teacher. She will be your son's teacher. And he will not call another student the N-word. But this is what I'm saying. Everywhere you turn, you're going to be hit with this. You got to learn to love you. Because I know, lady, I'm not the N-word. I don't care what you say about me. I am the N. I am not the N-word. I am not that. I am not that. And if you would relax, your son could learn a lot from me. But I knew who I was. So what she said about me didn't faze me. But that's why this study is saying you have to learn to embrace your identity. You got to learn to love who you are. You have to embrace your heritage. You have to embrace and take pride in your culture. That's why I studied the transatlantic slave trade, because I wanted to know how we got here. I wanted to know, how did this mess happen? How did we get to this place? How did it all go down? And that's what I studied, because I wanted to embrace all of me. I didn't start here in the United States. Black people are not native to the United States. Okay? They had to come here from Africa. Either they came over here in the early days when they were coming over here doing traveling before Columbus, pre-Columbus, or either they got here during this transatlantic slave trade. It was one or the other. One or the other. And I wanted to know about the transatlantic slave trade. I wanted to know how we got here and how it went down, so I could truly embrace all of me. Not only the American part of me, but the African part of me. I wanted to embrace all of me, because I'm called an African American. Not an African, not an American, an African American. And for me to truly understand that concept, what I am called, I had to study both of them. I had to study both continents, what happened to us on both continents, to get a full picture of why this systematic racism is in place to keep me and my people with a sense of devalued of self and low self-esteem. You got to take pride in your culture and your history. That's why I have so many history degrees. All right, let me look at these. Then we'll go back to other things they said we can do. Okay. I have accounts, but my investments aren't handled through Trace or Citibank. I handle them through an investment firm. Honestly, the banks need the customers. We don't need them. Okay, I see. Yes, the banks, you don't get much in your return. No, you don't. Wow, most likely the therapist is saying it's just, yes, the voices in your head that make me question how many Black people are on the wrong. Yes, that's what he was saying. That's exactly what the doctor said, that they're on the wrong medication. They give them medicine for schizophrenia when it's really just this systematic racism that they're constantly going through and being traumatized daily. But the white therapist is not going to know that. The Black therapist will, but the white therapist is not. That's exactly what they're saying. You're exactly right. All right. So the first thing they said, after we do that, after you You embrace yourself, you embrace your history, you embrace who you are. You learn to value yourself, you lift your self-esteem. They said you got to channel your anger. And what that means is you got to take all that anger that you feel for the system, and you're going to see the system as the white people, but it's a system. You're going to take this anger that you have towards the system, and you got to be creative. You got to create something with that. Either join groups, start an organization, go to Africa, start traveling to Africa, connect with Africans, channel that anger into something positive instead of making hate speeches and hate videos and I hate white people and I hate what difference. Come on. That's not going to help your mental illness. That's going to make it worse. So hating them, hating the system, that's a waste of your time. You got to heal. You can't hate. Black people cannot hate. We can't afford to hate. We can only heal. So we got to heal. So that's how you heal, by creating. Create something. Join an organization. Create an organization. Go to Africa. Create friendships over there. Do something positive with that anger. Allow yourself to feel hope and even gratitude. This is beautiful right here, y'all. It said, allow yourself to feel hope. So that makes a huge difference. Allow yourself to feel gratitude. That makes a huge difference to your mental health. Be thankful. Be thankful that you made it through this traumatic, systematic racist system. Be thankful. Be thankful that you grew up in it and you made it. Be thankful. That's what you got to do. Show gratitude for whatever you have. Be thankful for that. Be thankful for that. Because this system you were to have nothing. We were to have nothing. So be grateful that you made it through that system. Be grateful that you know what's going on. Be grateful that you can reach for better things. Be grateful that you know how to heal yourself and you know what to do to heal yourself. That's what you got to do. It says the studies have shown that acknowledging and expressing gratitude can help improve symptoms of depression. It can boost your self-esteem, and it can even strengthen your immune system. So when you're sitting there thinking this whole system has just did terrible things to me, be grateful. But say, but I still have my life. I still have breath. I'm still able to walk. I'm still able to talk. I can take some classes. And if I can't take classes, I can read on the internet. The internet is free. I can go to meetings. I can go to meetings in my community. I can find some like-minded people and I can just start hanging out with them and start talking to them. I'm thankful that I can do that. Because some people can't do that. Some people have lost their mind and they're totally checked out of reality and they cannot no longer do that. But if you can still do that, you can still turn it around for you. And that's what you got to do. That's what you got to do. You got to be grateful for every single thing. Say you got a bill. Bill's $200. All you got is $100. I'm thankful I got that 100. You see what I mean? I'm grateful. I'm grateful, Most High, that I got this 100. I'm grateful that I only need 100 more. I did need 200, but I'm grateful because I only need 100 now. Every situation. Just like with my mother. When I start feeling sad about my mother, you know what I say? I say I'm grateful that I had my mother. I'm grateful and I'm thankful that she was my mother. that I had the opportunity to have a mother. You see? And when I start being grateful and thankful for everything she did and everything she showed me, all that depression, that sadness, that heaviness, it has to go because you're in a different state. You're in a higher state. Gratitude is higher than depression. You got to remember that. Gratitude is always higher than depression. So stay in a state of gratitude. All right. So it said, because that's going to boost your self esteem. Again, it's going to make you feel even stronger. It's going to strengthen your immune system, and it's going to move that depression. All right. So look, let me go over here and look at these comments. Do we got any? No, we got them all. All right. Let me go over here. So look, basically, what we found out tonight is that, yes, systematic racism does create mental illness. It does create chronic stress, which causes health issues later on in life, chronic health issues such as depression and high blood pressure. All right. We found out that this stress, this racism, systematic racism, does create mental illness in people. We found out that this mental illness is often misdiagnosed because there's a shortage, there's a lack of African Americans or minorities who are therapists, and white therapists misdiagnose systematic racism, traumatic racism, as they called it. We found that out. And we also found out that there's ways to treat that. And the way you treat that, the way you counter that, because remember, we found out that the healthcare system, that probably won't be the answer because there's little to no funding for healthcare. Little to no funding. Okay. And then even if you do have funding, like we just said, you're taking a chance of being misdiagnosed and given some crazy medicine that you didn't even need. So you got to learn to heal yourself. You have to learn to take a system that devalues you and tries to lower your self-esteem and turn that system around. Not the system, you. How you see yourself. Turn that around. Turn that around. And be grateful that you grew up in a system like that. Because what did it do? It showed you how to love yourself. It showed you how to value yourself. It showed you how to rise above situations that try to bring you down. That's how you do that. So you got to take care of yourself. You got to take care of yourself physically, mentally, and spiritually. And that's the key to getting away from this. That's the key of getting out of this system and getting out, with your right mind. That's the key. That is the key right there. Taking care of yourself physically, mentally, and spiritually. All right. So look, y'all, that's all I had. I want to thank y'all for watching. And also, let's talk about next week. All right. So look, since I am leaving soon, we're going to have to switch the time of the show. Okay, I'm not in a predominantly Black neighborhood, somewhat diverse compared to years past, but we have 5 hospitals on the east, 5 hospitals to the east and west of us. Oh, that's good because we don't. So, okay. So what I want to do, what I'm thinking of doing, I want to start changing the show now. Saturday nights are not working for me at all. So I want to change the show to Sunday at around 2 o'clock, like I did that one time. I really liked that, and it seemed like people were there. So that's the first thing I want to do. Change the show to Sundays at 2. Okay. If y'all don't like that time, if y'all got another time, let me know. But I think Sundays are going to be better because especially it's the summertime and a lot of people have things to do on Saturdays, especially Saturday evenings. There's a lot of weddings, a lot of receptions, a lot of, graduations. So plus I'm leaving and I can't do 8 o'clock because 8 o'clock in the Gambia, I don't even know what time it is, midnight or something like that. So we're gonna have to do like maybe on a Sunday. We'll start next Sunday. We'll do 2 o'clock, okay? The Sunday after that, we'll see. Okay. Well, I'll let y'all know what's up with that one. Because we're gonna have to switch it when I leave. And I told y'all I'm leaving real soon. Sooner than y'all, sooner than y'all think. It's sooner than I think. Because I still haven't packed them suitcases. But that's because y'all school has been just, man. After I got over my apprehensions, man, school, I've been trying to get school done. I'm trying to get out of here when I get through school, but I'm going to have to pack tomorrow. But anyway, that's a different story. I'm going to make a video about that. So remember, tomorrow, next week, we're going to do two Sunday at 2 o'clock. I told you I'm sleepy. Sunday at 2 o'clock, okay? So, and then the Sunday after that, we might do a video. I'll let y'all know the Sunday after that. I'll keep y'all posted because I told y'all changes in the air. Changes in the air. I'm going to be gone soon. Okay, and what else? And that's all I have. But look, do me a favor. Thank y'all for subscribing. Thank you so much. So many more people have been subscribing to my channel and liking my videos. Please, y'all, continue to like my videos and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And look, that's all I have for tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I enjoyed talking about this. I enjoyed learning about this. It was very interesting. And if you get a chance, just Google systemic racism. And man, what you will learn is mind blowing. All right, guys, that's all I have. Thank you so much for coming out. And I will talk. Oops. And I will talk to y'all next week.